What's going on, Jeromes? So the Minnesota Vikings are unfortunately in the offseason, and there's going to be a lot of tough choices to be made, especially with some of the aging veterans, star veterans, guys that have been part of this team for a long time, but Father Time is undefeated, and this is going to be a very transformative offseason for the Vikings. So we have 10 Vikings Rooster predictions. Now, this isn't necessarily who they're going to sign in free agency or the draft. This is more what's going to happen in-house, so take that into account. Number one, Kirk Cousins is extended through 2024. Now, last offseason, they extended him 1 year, put the Band-Aid on, 1 year, $35 million. Also, the Vikings could look to lower his cap hit of $36.25 million this year. And Kirk, frankly, has earned an extension. I think Kirk Cousins had the best season of his career. Certainly wasn't an issue. I understand people just keep piling on him because of the final play against the Giants. Oh, we're choking it down, as opposed to taking into account the offensive line or the play call in itself. But anyways, Kirk tied the NFL record for fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives this season with 8. So Kirk played some very clutch football this year, and the offense, what really carried, the Vikings defense was 31st in the league, and the fact that the Vikings won 13 games with that defense dragging it down speaks to Kirk and Jefferson and TJ on the offensive side of things. So there you go. But I think that Kirk has earned the right. I think that his prime is probably 2, 3, maybe 4 more years. So doing that as well as lowering his cap hit this season does make a ton of sense. Next up, number 2, Dalvin Cook is cut. Now, we've seen a lot on the old social media that some Vikings fans think that you could get a second-round pick for Dalvin. That time has passed. Now, a team is not going to be trading significant draft capital for a 28-year-old running back and paying him $10 million plus. It's not going to happen. So Dalvin is due a $10.4 million base. If he is cut, it's going to free up $8 million in cap. Now, I would love it if a team wants to give up a 6th or 7th round pick and then take Dalvin's contract off the Vikings' hands, even though nothing's guaranteed. Sort of is what it is, but I very highly doubt that a team is going to do that, especially when you look at the caliber of running backs that you can get day 3 that can contribute right away. So I think that kind of sucks. But Dalvin makes some big-time plays, don't get me wrong, long runs against the Bills, as well as, of course, busting that screen against the Colts, but he's just not that same guy, even though it's so weird that Dalvin's durability had been the major concern throughout his career, and he played in every game this year, so it is what it is. Next up, number 3, Alexander Mattison leaves in free agency. Now, I do like Alexander Mattison, and if Dalvin is indeed cut, I wouldn't mind having Mattison back at a smaller deal and then pairing him up with King Kene or Ty Chandler. But analytics say you don't give a running back a second contract, even though, yes, Kwesi was in Cleveland with Nick Chubb when they drafted him day 2 and then extended him. I fully understand that, but I think that analytics say, especially when you're in a tight cap situation, just freeing up as much cap as possible and not spending it at running back does make sense. Plus, you look at Damon Pierce, 4th round, Tyler Algier, 5th round, Isaiah Pacheco, 7th round, where the Vikings can get some value from some of these later round running backs, as well as you do have Brian Koback, the UDFA, on the Rooster. You have Ty Chandler, 5th round pick last year, who was hurt and didn't get the time of day. King Kene, who I think can contribute more significantly on offense. So I think that the Vikings running back room is going to look a lot different. And respect to Madison, I think that he's played well enough that he'll get some decent money somewhere in free agency, and then the Vikings could be in line for some compensatory pick love. There you go. Next up, number 4, Adam Thielen pay cut. Now, I understand all the drama that's already gone down with Thielen's wife and Vikings fans on social media. I think that all gets forgotten because Thielen is due an $11.818 million base salary. I don't think that he sees that, and I don't think that if he was cut that he would see that in free agency either. So I think that both sides come together. They realize that they're better together. I think that Thielen... I don't think that Thielen is a wide receiver 2 anymore. I mean, when you have Jefferson being doubled and tripled nearly every single time, Thielen not being able to capitalize on that, it's kind of frustrating. Or, he could say that his role was diminished in the offense. I can understand that frustration too, but it sort of is what it is. And I do think that Thielen will come to realization that the equity of him being a one-team guy as opposed to going somewhere else for low money and just whatever, I think that makes a lot more sense. Plus, I think that he understands that something special is being built here in Minnesota. I think that he wants to be a part of that, etc. So, I don't know, pay cut down to $4, $5, $6 million with some incentives. I think that could be in the offing. Next up, number 5. Justin Jefferson gets his extension, and it's record-setting. 6 years, $200 million. So that's a roughly $33 million per year, resetting the wide receiver market and having him under contract through 2029 if you factor in the final year of his 4-year rookie deal, and then you take out the 5th-year option. So Jefferson obviously has earned every single penny of that. Plus, the salary cap implications for this year isn't too bad, depending on what the signing bonus is. You can divide that and prorate over 5 years. So the Vikings may be A-okay, and as well as inking up and keeping their best player and the best wide receiver in the National Football League. Number 6, Ezra Cleveland traded. So this one's a little bit out of left field, but for many years, it's been undersized, athletic, interior offensive lineman. Outside zone scheme, getting out on screens, even though, ironically, the Vikings were like the worst screen team in the league this year. But I think that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, I think that they're just going to be over it. I think that they're especially Kwesi is going to see the offensive lines that are still remaining in the playoffs. You look at the Bengals, even though they have injuries. You look at the Chiefs. You look at the Eagles. You look at the really good with talking stuff. Oh, the Niners. There you go. Yeah, they're pretty good on the inside, and they can run the ball with power. They can get a yard when they need it, and the Vikings necessarily didn't have that. And a lot of people criticize Kevin O'Connell's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 play calling, but maybe he realized that you couldn't get a push up front, which Ezra, I like him a lot, 2nd-round pick in 2020, but he's a left tackle. The only reason he kicked inside is because they drafted Darisaw in 2021, and he's been a good soldier about it. He didn't seem exactly thrilled about it, but I think that you could get a lot of value trading him to a left tackle needy team, because I think that whatever his next team is going to be, that's what he's going to play. I think that's his natural position. I think that he fought the good fight inside, but it's not what the Vikings need right now. Again, I want 330, 340-pound mofos on the inside, and no one's getting through. No one's getting through. Also, part and parcel with that, number 7, Bradbury leaves in free agency. And so the Vikings want to get back to building a bully up front. Bradbury is still undersized, even though, here's what's weird. So for 3 seasons, he was the worst center in the league. And there's no other way to sugarcoat it. But this season, had his best year, above average, which is great. I would say that he's probably top 10, top 11, top 12-ish center. But you also saw how he got manhandled by Williams and Lawrence in the wildcard game. And then you saw how the Eagles' offensive line manhandled Lawrence and Williams in the divisional round. So I think even though that was Bradbury's best, I think it is smart to part ways. Plus, Bradbury, I think, is going to be in line to get paid $10-11 million per year. And the Vikings, in a tight salary cap situation, they don't want none of that smoke. So Bradbury leaving free agency, Madison leaving free agency, and also puts the Vikings in line for some nice compensatory picks action. And next up, number 8, Kendricks and Hicks cut. So Jordan Hicks, I mean, that's fine. Signed a 2-year deal is what it is. But with Kendricks, I mean, this one sucks. I mean, in back-to-back off seasons, you're losing Anthony Barr, you're losing Eric Kendricks, who, I mean, hell, he might run and sign with the Cowboys, reunite with George Edwards and Anthony Barr. But I do think that the time has come. I think that Kendricks is still a good linebacker. I think that speed was a major issue with Kendricks and Hicks. I think coverage was a major issue, and that's what sucks, because that's been Kendricks' forte for many years. But they can save the Vikings can save around $14.4 million by cutting both of them. And I think it's time for new blood at the off-ball linebacker position. I think it's time for Brian Asamoah to be a starter, for him to be unleashed, and also just getting younger and faster in the middle of that Vikings defense is going to be huge. Next up, number 9, Harrison Smith pay cut. Now, I understand the irony where I said just getting younger and faster, but Harrison Smith, who, by the way, when he signed his contract under Rick Spielman, it wasn't with Kwesi, but when he signed his extension, it made him the highest paid safety in NFL history. He's due a $14.7 million base salary. I did have a great year this year, 5 interceptions. 5 million interceptions would have been a record, but also dealt with some health issues. That knee was dinged up, had some neck issues as well. So I think it's a spot where Harrison obviously has some value. I don't think that his trade value is that high with that contract currently, but I think that the sides could work something out, take a small pay cut. I think that Harrison could potentially want to see the rebirth of this defense, because he's been stuck on some really bad Vikings defenses the last 3 years, and having it come full circle and watching a rebirth and just rising like a phoenix from the ashes. Hopefully the next defense coordinator will allow Harrison to be Harrison Smith and let him be like a de facto linebacker, let him be a joker down in the box. But And I just think something works out there. And then lastly, number 10, I think Patrick Peterson re-signs. So I remember he signed a 1-year, $10 million deal 2 off seasons ago coming over from Arizona. And then last year he re-signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. I think he gets a similar deal to that. I think that he feels like there's unfinished business. And even though what's interesting is that if and when he resigns, he will have been through 3 different defenses. So he had Zimmer last year, he had O'Connell and Donatel this year, and then O'Connell and whoever's going to be next season. But 5 interceptions this year. He was PFF second team All-Pro. So I think that he proved that he does still have some tread left on the tires, although I know sort of got exposed by Isaiah Hodgins in the wild card round, but I think that he still brings something to the table in terms of on playability, as well as, of course, the intangibles and working with these young cornerbacks off the field as well. So that's it. That's 10 Vikings Rooster predictions. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.